Hello and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to look at how to earn 20,000 dirhams per month from Dubai property investment. Now, if you are a Dubai resident, you will probably know that 20,000 dirhams a month is actually a very decent salary for someone. So I was curious to know how much money would we need to invest in order to get this kind of return from rent alone. So we're going to look at how much investment is needed, what kind of property will give you the best ROI and therefore hopefully reach this kind of level, and how long it takes to get started, as well as how this would compare to other investments such as index funds or the stock market. Now, our goal with PropertyAdvice.ae is to help everyday people achieve strong, consistent ROI from low cost, low risk, ready properties in Dubai. So we are focusing on the lower side of the market to try and drive strong returns. And this has all come from 2 or more years of research now, testing my own real experience, and you'll find lots of videos on this channel going through various examples. Now, our core investment rules, which I've come to develop over this time, have been to simply focus on small units, stick to ready properties only, not off-plan properties. We're also going to target vacant units with renovation potential because those are going to get you usually the highest returns. We're going to maximize the amount of rent we're getting through being smart when it comes to leasing. And finally, reinvesting and compounding your gains is going to give you the ultimate best results. So how much do we need to invest to get this magic 20,000 dirhams per month? The key assumptions here is that the properties we're going to need to buy are going to get us 7.5% true rental ROI. I'll cover this in a moment, but essentially it means that all the fees are already included in the calculation. So when I say you're going to get 20,000 dirhams a month, that's after you've paid for things like service charges, maintenance, agent fees, everything. So all I wanted to know was how much money do we need to put in order to get 20,000 dirhams a month out, and the whole system keeps running in the background. Now, there is something I'm going to call the rule of 160, which makes it a lot easier to simply calculate this for yourself. So if you've got a desired income, for example, 20,000 dirhams per month, we're going to multiply 20,000 by 160, and that's going to give us the total investment number, and that is 3.2 million dirhams. We can also work it backwards by looking at what 7.5% of 3.2 million. Well, that's 240,000 a year, which is 20,000 dirhams per month. And when I mentioned these low cost units, well, these are probably going to be studio apartments that we're going to have to buy, and each one is going to cost us between 550 and 750,000 dirhams. Now, on this table here, you'll be able to see the range of incomes on the left. So if you are looking for a specific type of income from your property investment, you can easily figure out how much money you would need to invest in order to get that by multiplying it by 160. So 5,000 becomes 800,000, 10,000 a month becomes 1.6 million, and so on. Now, once you know your total investment, then you can sort of assess the market and decide how many units you would need to buy in order to get to that income. If you've only got an initial investment of, let's say, 800,000, then you're probably going to be looking at 1 to maybe 2 units if available for that price, and the total monthly kind of profit you would make from that project would be 5,000. True ROI is really important here because when we're choosing units to buy, we need to make sure that they are going to get us 7.5% plus. In order to do that, we're going to look at the purchase price. We're going to add the buying fees and any renovations or furnishings that we need to do. We're also going to look at the rent price that we're going to get. We're going to take off the service charge, and we're going to take away the maintenance as well. And we're going to divide those two sums. And then multiplying by 100 puts it into a nice percentage figure, and let's see if we can find any properties that are actually going to get us this and fit in with this whole plan. So we're going to look for 4 to 5 properties that are going to get us 7.5% plus true rental ROI, and we've got a budget of 3.2 million to spend. So where do we find these properties? Well, you can look at the typical property portals, you can speak to agents and so on, but the key things to look for are that they are in fact ready properties. They're not off plan, because that's a little bit too risky for us. We're looking for smaller units, and it's always better to buy a number of smaller units rather than one large house, for example. If you have a look at some of my other videos, you'll quickly see why. Also, vacant units allow you to maximize the rent, especially if you can renovate it as well. So these are going to be units where you can actually have an impact on the amount of rent you're going to get, rather than just taking over someone else's investment, which they're probably selling because it's not performing that well anyway. In demand areas, of course, we're going to look at places where people want to be, and typically the smaller studio units are the cheapest ways to live in those areas, and therefore are always going to be filled up first. We're also going to try and find units with generally lower service charges. If you're going to do this on your own, these are the sort of things you should be looking for to try and make sure that ROI stays above 7.5%. What to avoid: don't waste your time looking for Airbnb style rental units, because they're not probably actually going to perform all that well, given the amount of availability here, the range of hotels is nearby as well. Similarly, hotel apartments, they're probably not going to perform that well because of the amount of fees you're going to have to pay to the management companies to keep them running. Brand new, fully furnished units in these shiny new buildings are obviously very attractive. You might think, oh great, I won't have any maintenance to do, but the maintenance costs are really low on even older properties anyway. The problem here is that maybe there's 60 units available in the market right now to rent, and you have no way of making yours more attractive than anyone else's. The only way to do that is to drop the price of the rent. So that is probably not the best strategy. It's better to look for newer units, but then furnish them yourself, for example. Off-plan hype, we avoid like the plague on Property Advice. We don't like to believe any kind of promises that agents might make, or developers might make for that matter, about the future values of these things. We want results today, and you can only do that with ready properties, and you've got all the data to back it up. Oversupply we're trying to avoid as well. So certain areas, a great example of this is JVC in Dubai. There are right now 1,400 studio apartments available to rent on Bayut. That means that if you had one of these to rent out, you're competing with over 1,000 units that are probably quite similar. So it's going to be really hard to get yours rented quickly. Choose a different area, or choose the cheapest unit within a very popular area to maximize the potential of renting it quickly. Now, you could go on the property portals you're on your own and have a look for these units, but it may take you some time to sort of realize which types of buildings and units are typically the best performing. This is where our area hot lists come in to help you. This is an example, and I'm going to dive into this actual live example as well very shortly, but you can access this example Sports City Studio ROI list, where we literally take every available studio in that area and we rank them in order of true ROI for you. These are completely free to use at the moment, so please check them out and give us some feedback. But let's dive into a live example to show you how you might use this to assess properties very, very quickly. So I've jumped into the Sports City Studio ROI hot list here, and what this sheet basically does is takes every single property for sale from Bayut. These are only studio apartments that are all vacant, or at least mention that they're vacant in the listing. We also collect all of the rent averages for that exact building that are currently available, and these are for furnished units, because it's always best to rent out a furnished studio anyway. So we're looking for the higher rents So we have actually gone and found the average rents for all these buildings already. We've also found the prices per square foot for the service charges, and that gives us an annual cost of service charges for that particular unit as well. Of course, those are based on the sizes of the units, which we've also got. And we've even got the buying fees calculated for you as well as a true cost. So a final real cost of actually buying this unit. The only thing that this doesn't include is the costs of any renovations or furniture, which you'd have to look at manually later. But for example, in Sport City, it's nice to see that we have about 12 units available here right now. And these lists get updated very regularly, by the way. So when you come to open this, you might have a new set. But all of these units, starting from this Royal Residence 1, going through to V2, Champions Tower, Amal Tower, Hera Tower, Spirit Tower, The Bridge, all of these units are actually have the potential, at least, to get you a 7.5+% true ROI. So if I was looking to perhaps choose a collection of these to make up my 20,000 dirham a month returning investment, I would be going down this list only rather than the entire list in Sport City. As you can see, there's not actually that many overall, but there are some, like there's another Spirit Tower, there's the Matrix, Elite 6, there's Spanish Tower, Arabian, Cricket Tower. There are a few other areas, but these are getting you like 5.5, 6.4, etc. So these aren't the best investments in Sport City. The best ones will always be at the top of the list in terms of true rental ROI. We do have these sheets for other areas, by the way. So we've got right now Alpha Jan, JVC, Arjan, and Business Bay. So depending on the kind of area you're looking for, please let us know, by the way, if you'd like us to assess a specific area for you. I'm happy to add any more we get requests for, so you can leave those in the comments or reach me directly via the website. But if we just look at Sport City, I quite like the look of this V2 property. So it should get almost 8% ROI, which would actually beat what I'm trying to do here. And you can just click the link directly to the agent. So Mohammed Ali Farouk here, I've never spoken to Mohammed, but I found his listing on Bayut, and of course here's some free promotion for him, because he does have a very nice looking unit, reasonable view. It's got a nice new kitchen. As far as I know, this is quite a new building in Sport City and quite nicely finished. The price is relatively low, and if we have a look also in the average rent here, this is for an unfurnished one, is going to be 48. On our list, we've got a 54,000 dirham average rent, but that would be for a furnished unit. So I would be pretty confident that if we bought this unit, we spent 588,000 in total buying this unit, and then maybe spent another 10 to 20 on furniture. So for around 600,000 dirhams, you're going to get this steady rental income. You're going to spend 7,300 dirhams on service charges. We can add maybe another 500 to 1,000 a year on general maintenance. So you should easily be able to get your 7.5% plus here for not much effort, actually, because it doesn't really need renovation. It's quite a new one. Royal Residence 1, on the other hand, is going to maybe get you into a property a little bit cheaper. But if we have a look at it, this is the one that I was actually featuring in my previous video, which you could buy with just 142,000 dirhams initially using a mortgage. But you can see this is obviously a little bit older and less attractive, so there's probably some renovation to be done here that's going to cost quite a lot more. Either way, these lists have saved me loads of time, and I'm sure they will save you also a lot of time in order to have a look at finding these properties. So how did this system compare to other investments? Now, the main one I always compare to is investing in index funds. If you've got a fortune of 3.2 million lying around, probably the smartest thing to do would generally to be putting it into an index fund, following some of the guides you'll see online. If you can manage it yourself, you should be getting around 8% very steady returns every year. But with any kind of market investments, you should also always assume that there may be times when the markets take a downturn, they crash, and so on. So there's a couple caveats to do with which one is actually better. So if we're assuming we're getting 20,000 dirhams every month from our property investment, that's 3.2 million. What if we were just to invest this money into an index fund and watch it grow, basically? If we invest the same 3.2 million and we're going to get 8% market returns every year, which is not actually the case. Usually you get some years you'll get 12 or 20, some years it will actually go down. So you could assume an 8% market return overall as per the last few decades. We can also use the 4% rule for withdrawals, because you will probably want to use some of this money, especially if this is part of a retirement plan. Now, if we use the 4% rule on this investment fund, the 4% rule, by the way, is supposed to allow you to start spending your money every year without the risk of the money overall running out. It's not perfect though, which I'll explain why later, but the 4% rule applied to 3.2 million would equal 10,000 or just under 11,000 dirhams a month, which is obviously less cash flow than doing it through the property. If we simulate this over 10 years, so we've got 3.2 million dirhams sat in this investment fund, and we are going to withdraw from it roughly 10,000 dirhams every month. After 10 years, how much is that fund still going to be worth, considering we've also already been withdrawing some of it? Well, it's going to be worth around 6 million. If we compare that to this property process, the amount of rent plus the increased value of the property over the same 10 years would actually be 6.5 million. That's because we're just assuming a simple 2% property value and rent growth each year and applying it to the sums. They are very, very close results though. So the key takeaway should be that you should invest in something. If you've got money available, please invest it in something, especially if you're trying to plan for your retirement. Now, also you might be wondering, well, why is he withdrawing 4% and not 8%? Well, it's trying to keep your money safe and invested in something where it's not going to dwindle. If we were to withdraw 8% of this fund to get our roughly the same 20,000 dirhams a month, that fund would run out simply within about 20 years or less. And that there's many studies that have shown this, and the reason for that is simply market crashes. Occasionally we have market crashes where the whole market will reduce by, let's say, 30% or more even sometimes. That will have a massive effect on your overall investment in index funds or the stock markets compared to property. People always need somewhere to live. They will always prioritize paying their rent, and it will actually give you a chance to adjust your portfolio even in the future. If you've got a number of smaller units rather than one big one that you're relying on, this could actually be quite a nice way to ensure you're getting a steady monthly income in the future. So key takeaways, aside from that, you should just invest in something, be it property, index funds, gold, even Bitcoin, I would recommend. But the key takeaways here is the property pros is that you're going to have more cash flow. You're going to have these steady returns every month or every year. You're going to have time to react to market changes, especially if you've bought, let's say, 4 or 5 studio apartments and one of them is not performing very well. It's quite easy to switch that for something else, or to sell it if it's the values increase massively, and then maybe switch your investment strategy to another type of apartment, another unit, etc. You've got an unlimited timeline. In theory, these property investments should last a lifetime. So we are getting not just 20,000 dirhams a month now, we're also getting the inflation adjusted 20,000 dirhams a month in the future. So this would make a really solid retirement plan for somebody. Another reason why that's great is because you can also get investors and golden visas from the UAE when you invest in property here. And so for now, everything is tax-free as well. Property cons. To do this well, you are going to need to spend time and effort in setting it up. Now, we can help you with that to an extent at Property Advice. We will have services to actually still allow you full control over your property, but help you in each step. But note that you are going to get your hands dirty. You are going to have to answer the phone in the middle of the night when things might go wrong if you are trying to get the best return for your investment. Ongoing active maintenance, that's kind of what I mentioned, although it happens so rarely. Usually I might get a WhatsApp message from my tenant to say something's leaking in their apartment, and it's just a few taps of my phone to get it sorted with a service provider. But there will be active maintenance to do, especially when it comes to writing out contracts, checking upon rent payments, things like that. You can get someone else to do it for you, but they will take quite a lot of your return for doing that. So consider that, how many units you're going to need in order to get a good income, and do you have the time to actively maintain them? This is certainly not a passive investment. Your returns could obviously reduce and the values could drop. That's something we won't be able to predict, but neither will we be able to predict that for the stock market. Now, index funds, the pros there is that there's a lot more growth overall generally than in property, especially ready studio properties in Dubai, in terms of their values over time, and it's very easy to set up with little effort. Again though, if you use the kind of the middlemen in order to do that, you are going to give up some of your returns, and you're probably not going to get your 8% market returns each year. So you do need to look into this to do it effectively. There's also lots of great Facebook groups and resources for how to do this on your own from the UAE. Index fund cons is that it is limited by market crashes. I would sooner expect my 20,000 dirhams a month to come from property than from a fund which is affected by market crashes so quickly. But the other downside in this example, at least, is that you're getting less cash flow because of this 4% rule. You could argue that actually for an equivalent index fund to the property example I'm sharing is a investment fund with at least 6 million dirhams, because then your 4% would actually be your 20,000 dirhams a month that you are expecting to receive every time. One last thing I'll just mention is that this is actually a really good way of sort of future planning. So if you know that you may want a steady monthly income for a particular reason, such as you want to create an allowance for your family back home, or it could be perhaps your children are going to university and you want to make sure you're able to pay for their rent while they're there, buying a property at this sort of level would give you a monthly income. So don't forget the rule of 160. If you're thinking of how much do I need to invest in order to get X amount, well, multiply that number by 160 and that will be your monthly income, and then the answer would be your total investment. From that, see how many units of somewhere in the 600,000 dirham range are you going to need in order to make that a reality. Now, hopefully you found that useful, guys. I know it's a little bit intense going through all these numbers on the screen. If you do want to reach out to me and have a private chat directly, I will be able to facilitate that. I'm also happy to help you with every step of the way when it comes to investing in property and doing projects like this. So please don't be shy about reaching out for advice, and I wish you all the best in your investment journey.